The games are here. History could be made and repeated. One defending champion looks to cement her legacy, while another hopes to continue his dynasty. The future is bright for the young stars of the sport. We'll tell you who could shine in Madison. Who will be the fittest on earth? That's next on Game Central. Hi everybody, welcome to another edition of Game Central. I'm Sean Woodland. Today's episode is presented by Thorne, the official supplement partner of CrossFit. The CrossFit Games are upon us. 40 men, 40 women gathering in Madison, Wisconsin to compete for the title of Fittest on Earth. And let's start on the women's side. Here are the 10 athletes who come into the CrossFit Games having won their semifinals. Toomey, of course, going for her 6th straight CrossFit Games championship. Laura Horvath is the only other woman on this list who has stood on the Games podium. Mal O'Brien and Haley Adams, they are both expected to push for a spot inside the top 3. But I mentioned Toomey. She is going for an unprecedented 6th straight CrossFit Games championship. And she has been especially dominant over the last 3 years. During that span, she has only finished outside the top 10 in an event 3 times, and 27 of her 33 career Games event wins have come since 2019. She has also had the championship wrapped up well before the final event the last 3 years, and in 2021, she won 4 of the first 6 events. It is indeed Tia versus everybody else, and Lauren Smith has a closer look at the athletes who are hoping to stop Toomey from standing on the podium once again in 2022.
So who am I keeping my eye on in the 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games? Aside from Tia-Clair Toomey, of course. Let's start with someone who all eyes are going to be on, and that's 2021 Rookie of the Year, Mal O'Brien. Some are even touting this 18-year-old as Tia's #1 contender, and you can completely see why. She spent the season being coached by Matt Fraser. She started the year by winning the CrossFit Open before going on to win the North American quarterfinals and closed out the Granite Games 56 points ahead of second-placed Amanda Barnhart with 3 first-place finishes. I mean, we saw that she had all this raw ingredients with that 7th place in 21, but this time around we've got a more mature, mentally resilient and composed Mal O'Brien, and I'd be amazed if we didn't see her on a podium. From Europe, you can't look much further than Laura Horvath, a 2nd place finish at the CrossFit Games in 2018 and 2021. She's the winner of the 21 Dubai CrossFit Championships, the 22 Lowlands semi-final, and you can add consistency to her resume as well, because this is going to be her 5th consecutive year at the CrossFit Games. And she's only 25. Now, what about the Aussies? Cara Saunders is always on the radar, and after having to withdraw from 2021 Games, I think her motivation is going to be through the roof. She's 32 years old and she's just renowned for her strength. This is going to be her 10th CrossFit Games, and this season she's opted for a slightly different approach by joining Mayhem's roster of athletes. And she's already travelled over to Cookville to prepare for the Games, and her entire family have come with her. Now, 6 months after dislocating her elbow at the 21 Games, Brooke Wells not only recovered from that surgery, but then eclipsed most of the other top athletes in the Open, ranking 5th worldwide. That working with a proven team just seems to be getting her comfortably back to fitness, but also mentally in the right place just to believe in her personal capability. And it was completely evidenced in her return to competition at the MAC semi-final. She had 3 top 3 finishes and an event win. We just got to see how this now transfers to the pressure cooker of the Games. And what about the MAC winner, Danielle Brandon? Well, she's had 3 consecutive Games experiences. She's placed 10th, 15th and 11th. But this year, it really looks like she stepped up to another level. She won 3 out of 6 semi-final events. She has, though, recently opted for a coaching change. She's left Underdog Athletics out in Vegas, who she's been with since 2020, and she's joined the Brute Strength crew in Naples, Florida. Now, Brandon has said she's found more motivation to train under Matt Torres's more focused programming, but no doubt this is still going to be quite a major test. Now, I think collectively, I speak for absolutely everyone that will all be watching the Games with so much excitement. I've only mentioned a few people, but there is just so much depth to this female field. All that's left to say is, bring on the Games.
Thank you, Lauren. Let's turn our attention now to the men's side. Here are the 10 men who won their respective semifinals coming into the 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games. Justin Medeiros was the Syndicate Crown Champion in week number 1. He is looking for his 2nd straight CrossFit Games championship. Roman Krennikov will be in Madison, the first time we have seen him in person at the CrossFit Games. Brent Fikowski looking to get back to the podium, and Gui Malheiros, who had an outstanding year last year, looking to possibly crack the top 5 in 2022. Justin Medeiros is looking to start a Froning and Fraser-like run and win multiple games championships. He was the picture of consistency in winning his first championship last year. In 15 total events, Medeiros only finished outside the top 10 twice, and he won just one event, the last one. Since then, Medeiros has won both in-person competitions in which he's competed, the Rogue Invitational and then the Syndicate Crown. There are plenty of talented athletes who are going to try and put some pressure on Medeiros this year, and Tommy Marquez has more on that.
Thanks, Sean. On top of Justin Medeiros, I think most fans of the sport are familiar with names like Patrick Vellner, Brent Fikowski, Björgvin Karl Gudmundsson as perennial podium contenders. But I've got 5 men to watch that I think will not only factor heavily into the podium discussion, but also whether or not anyone will be able to top Medeiros in Madison. First up, I don't think anyone can sleep on Spencer Panchik after what we saw from him at the MAC and the byproduct of his move to train with the Proven Crew. Winning the Open Worldwide was a nice start to the season, but the way he was in total control during semifinals, winning half of the events and finishing every single day of competition as your overall leader, showcased a different demeanor from a man who finished 5th at last year's games, and particularly in the MAC finale, when despite already having a games ticket locked up, he came out in full attack mode and went for not only the event, but overall win as well, and he took down both. Remember, he was only 32 points back of the podium last season, and clearly Spencer Panchik has taken a step forward this year. Up next, I got last year's most improved athlete at the games and possibly the new king of the barbell in Brazil's Gui Malheiros. Last year's sensational run at the games was earmarked by 3 eye-popping wins, but where he struggled was some of the more classic CrossFit elements beyond the short, explosive time domains. He joined the Mayhem crew, moved to Cookeville, and the result was a pair of overall wins in the South American quarterfinals and semifinals, both of which he actually failed to do last year. But the big test is coming up, and for someone like Gui that has so much talent, it seems like he's taken all the right steps since the games last season so he can showcase some improved endurance, swimming, and the ability to grind out longer workouts at the highest stage to improve upon last season. In the 3 spot, how could you not be excited to see Roman Krannikoff make his live competition debut at the CrossFit Games? Because when he gets to line up shoulder to shoulder with his competition, he's electric. Over the past 3 seasons, Roman has taken part in 5 major live CrossFit competitions, during which he's won 18 events for an average of more than 3 event wins per competition, and overall finish-wise, he's finished on the podium every time with 3 wins, 1 second place finish, and 1 third. When Roman shows up to live competition, he succeeds. He wins events, he shakes up the leaderboard, and he can hang with some of the best in the sport. Factor in that he bulked up in the offseason to improve his strength numbers across the board in the offseason, and then was able to maintain some of his crazy endurance while beating 2 of the men on this list in Dubai. I think everyone's going to be looking over their shoulder once Roman steps on the floor. Speaking of one of those men that went toe-to-toe with Roman in Dubai, one of them turned some heads at the Lowlands Throwdown this year, and it's Serbia's Lazar Đukić. In his rookie season last year, Đukić announced his arrival with a 2nd place in the opening swim kayak event, but then backed it up by winning the long run toes to bar test of event 10 to firmly cement himself inside the top 10 overall. After the breakthrough at the games, Đukić doubled down by joining the Mayhem athlete crew in the off-season. He already excels at longer endurance events and some games exclusive elements like swimming. But after a 2nd place finish in Dubai and beating BKG in Lowlands to win his semifinal, it seems like he's improved in some of the other elements of his game like heavier barbell loads, some odd object work, but Đukic's bottom half finish last year came in the sprint, the 2 heavy clean run couplets, the max snatch, and the heavy yoke events. Even a slight improvement relative to the field in similar nature test has him back in the mix inside the top 10 and maybe, just maybe, even a top 5. The final athlete on this list has had a long road to being back at the games, and it's Ricky Garrard. It's been 5 years since we last saw him in Madison, but you know what? He served his suspension and he's made his way back into the conversation after a podium finish in Dubai and a strong showing at the Torian Pro where he ended up in the medical tent after event 1, but rallied to qualify easily. There are things about what Ricky brings to the table as an athlete that make him a big potential X factor at the games. He has an extensive athletic background in a variety of sports like rugby, motocross, mountain biking, and is at the games where that level of athleticism pays off, like in his since vacated wins in cyclocross and the Madison triplet from 2017. In a similar vein, he won both of the events in Dubai where they got outside of the norm and had to traverse the indoor ski slope. And at the games, there are going to be events where we get outside the box and get uncomfortable with some new elements. And those are the places where I think we'll see Ricky make a move as he continues his comeback tour at the games. Those are my 5. Expect to see all 5 of these athletes in the mix towards the top of the leaderboard all weekend long. And coming off a pretty close race at the games last year, I think we're in for an even better show at the games from the men's field in Madison at the 2022 NOBULL CrossFit Games. Sean?
Thank you, Tommy. Last year, we saw some young stars really break through at the CrossFit Games, and it will probably be the same story here in 2022. Here's a look at some of the men and women who are making their first individual appearances at the CrossFit Games, and almost all of them have experience in the teenage division. Emma Lawson won the 16 and 17-year-old division last year. She also took part in the 22.2 Open announcement in Columbus, Ohio. Paige Powers has been on the podium before as a teenager. Cole Graysaber, Tudor Magda, and Dallin Pepper all competed as teenagers before as well. And for a closer look at the first-year athletes looking to make some noise in Madison, here's Kayla Banfield.
Thank you, Sean. And honestly, it almost feels wrong calling some of these athletes rookies because they've all had so much experience competing, just not as elites yet. To start, let's take a look at Emma Lawson, who's technically still a teenage athlete. At only 17 years old, Emma is our only athlete who has chosen not to compete in her age group and level up with the elites, following in the footsteps of Mal O'Brien and Emma Carey. Lawson created quite a name for herself when she won the 16 to 17s last year as a 16-year-old. Emma wiped the teenage floor with all top 3 finishes except one, proving that she was truly the best amongst the teens, and naturally this year wants to increase the stakes by playing alongside the elites. Lawson trains as a mammoth athlete under Josh Woolley, and as a testament to her loyalty and consistency has been working with him since she first started CrossFit 10 years ago. Our next athlete is Dallin Pepper, who has seen huge success as a teenager, winning the 14 to 15-year-old division once, and then winning the 16 to 17-year-old division twice. His last year as a teen was 2019, and while he hasn't been to the games since then, he has been working tirelessly behind the scenes, attending the semi-finals events and often only missing out on a game spot marginally. Well, this year is his breakout year as an elite athlete, finishing 10th in the Worldwide Open and then finishing 2nd at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge, behind a very dominant Spencer Panchik. As a brute strength athlete training underneath Matt Torres, we are excited to see how he stacks up in Madison. And lastly, we have another previous teen podium finisher, Alexis Raptis. Like Pepper, Raptis has waited her turn and finally breaks into the elite category, but in this instance has waited 6 years. She did quite well as a teenager, placing 4th and 2nd in 2015 and 2016 respectively, and since then has been knocking on the door of the elites, but qualifies with flying colours this year at the Syndicate Crown, coming 2nd behind Hayley Adams. Working under training think tank, Raptis has also been rubbing shoulders with many other experienced athletes such as Noah Olson and Travis Mayer. Sean, as always, it's a stacked field at the CrossFit Games this year, and even our rookies are looking frighteningly capable of shaking up the leaderboard.
Thank you, Kayla. That will do it for this edition of Game Central presented by Thorne. You can create an account and get 25% off supplements from Thorne. Visit thorne.com/u/CrossFit. Episode 8 of Miles to Madison airs July 28th. That's a Thursday. This episode is going to feature a closer look at the Mid-Atlantic CrossFit Challenge and the Granite Games, and specifically Danielle Brandon and Mal O'Brien. And remember, Fittest on Earth Next Gen, the story of the 2021 NOBULL CrossFit Games, is available for download now on iTunes. Thanks so much for watching, everybody. I'm Sean Woodland, and we will see you in Madison.